no one to cross-examine the witnesses. America is listening to Fox News.
Half a day. Patsy Gogri from Security Title here with information about what a title company does. The title side of our business determines who owns a property and guarantees your ownership with a title insurance policy. The escrow side acts as an independent third party, managing the transfer of money and documents between the buyer, seller, lenders, and others. Security Title has a management of real estate closings down to a science. Give us a call. We are here to help.
It's a party in the park. The Governor's Office, Mayor's Council of Guam, and GDB invite you to Liberation Bandana Friday, 11 to 10, July 22nd at Ipao Beach. Food trucks, local bands, the Marine Corps Band, and Japan's DJ Yamato spin to a spectacular finale during the drones and fireworks show. Plus, free activities and rides for kids.
Thanks to Guam Economic Development Authority, Seventh-day Adventist Clinic, Guam International Airport Authority, KOAM Communications, Port Authority of Guam, Cortec, Bank of Guam, Guam TV Productions, Guam Music, PHR Ken Micronesia, and St. Luke's Medical Center.
Closing arguments will begin Friday in Steve Bannon's contempt trial for refusing to comply with a subpoena from the January 6th committee.
After Steve Bannon opted not to take the stand in his own defense, his lawyers rested their case, but not before a last-ditch effort to have the judge declare Bannon's innocence. The defense claimed prosecutors did not prove the contempt of Congress charge their client faces. One of the defense lawyers argued that the timing to comply with the congressional subpoena was flexible, so it can't be said that Bannon didn't comply. A witness for the prosecution said Bannon was uncooperative from the outset. Closing arguments are set to begin Friday. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
House Democrats have approved a bill that would write into federal law protection for contraceptives. 8 Republicans joined the Democrats in the 228 to 195 vote. Democrats have pushed to add Supreme Court-granted protections into federal law in recent weeks. A measure approved earlier this week would protect same-sex and mixed-race marriages. Republicans accusing the Democrats of creating imaginary concerns, arguing there's been no effort to eliminate access to contraceptives. Amazon expanding its role in the healthcare business.
The e-commerce giant has gone shopping and is buying San Francisco-based One Life Healthcare for close to $4 billion. The company operates a primary care practice under the name One Medical. The move will enable Amazon to gain access to a practice that operates more than 180 medical offices in 25 U.S. markets and works with more than 8,000 companies to provide healthcare benefits to employees, including with in-person and virtual care. The deal will significantly add to a smaller service Amazon launched several years back and for which it has signed up a limited number of employers in the last year. Hillary Barsky, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
4 years ago, we expressed our belief that a strong economy depends on a strong middle class, that small businesses need help to survive in tough times, and new industries are needed to diversify our economic base. The pandemic proved us right in so many ways.
We said we would support tax cuts for small businesses, and we did. We said we would streamline government services to create a more business-friendly environment, and we are. We said we would invest in infrastructure improvements, and we have. We said we would expand opportunities for our people to learn much-needed trades, and we delivered.
Let's continue this progress. We are all in this together, and we humbly ask for your vote. This is Governor Lou Leon Guerrero, and I approve this message.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, shall not be infringed. You know, Jose, I getting in my car, coming down here, I was kind of happy because, you know, yesterday I had a day off and I kind of went into my holiday routine, so I hadn't really given it a whole lot of thought, but it just seemed kind of like Monday.
It did.
You know, because yesterday was a day off, and I figured, well, okay, today's my favorite day of the week, Monday. I got 5 days of talk. Whoa, wait a minute. Today is not Monday. What a bitter surprise was that when it dawned on me today. Just because yesterday was a holiday doesn't mean today is Monday. So today is not Monday. We've just got today, and then we go back into limbo again, Jose.
Yeah, I'm just happy that you're able to concentrate on the road because it is distracting.
Put my headphones on, I have a better chance of hearing what you said.
I said I'm just happy that you're able to concentrate on the road because it is a distracting thought.
Yeah, really. But, you know, I just, you know, I didn't think about it. I just had this sense, well, you know, today is Monday. It's the beginning of a new week, and well, here we are. It's the end of the week. Okay, let's take a peek at Zemi Ikutni. This is not really a hard-hitting editorial, but I'll let it go for obvious reasons. Our view, remembering a liberator who continues to help. As the island continues its celebration of Liberation Day, we'd like to remember one of the liberators who continues to help our island heal from the ruins of war, including wars fought in the decades since World War II. Herschel Woody Williams was the last surviving Medal of Honor recipient from World War II. He was born on a West Virginia dairy farm in 1923. Enlisted in the Marine Corps of May of 1943 and served in New Caledonia, Guadalcanal, and Guam. After liberation of Guam, Williams went on to fight in the Battle of Iwo He was serving with the 21st Marines, 3rd Marine Division. Quote, when he displayed valiant devotion to duty and service above self as he enabled his company to reach its objective, according to the Woody Williams Foundation website. He was awarded the Medal of Honor. Before he enlisted, Williams delivered Western Union telegrams. I would imagine you'd have a hard time finding anybody around anymore who even knows what a telegram is, right? Yeah. I'm just going to digress here for a moment and talk about telegrams and tell you that when I was hired to come to this lovely place almost 60 years ago, I was given notice that I was hired by means of a telegram. Telegrams went over hard wires, and if you were in the operator's shack, he had a little key, and he would tap on his key, and it would tap out dots and dashes, dee dee dee, dot 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 dit dot dit, and then the person on the other end would write down what he said, and those things would be typed up in strips of paper and pasted on another piece of paper. You paid by the word, so you were very brief in your expressions. But I did get a telegram from Guam saying, we're offering you a job as teacher, salary, etc. Please reply soonest. Telegrams were very common in those days. Of course, we didn't have email. We had telephones, but telephones were pretty expensive. When I was a youngster, we lived about 15 miles from my grandma's house, And sometimes when we were going to talk, when we had a message for my grandma, the question was, shall we call Grandma? Or maybe we'll just drive down to Burlington and visit her. Because it was about 6 of one, a half dozen of the other.
Surprise visit.
Yeah. Yeah, but phone calls were so expensive. Telegrams were relatively cheap, so people used telegrams a lot. When subject to telephones, when I first arrived here, a call to the United States had to be person to person. It had to be 3 minutes long, and for that you ponied up $12, which was a lot of money if you're only making about $25 a day. Back to Woody Williams. He was a telegraph delivery boy. Before he enlisted, Williams delivered Western Union telegrams informing Gold Star families that their loved ones had died in military service. According to the Foundation's website, the experience gave him a great appreciation for life and an understanding of a difference in death in the normal world as expected in life and those lost serving in the military for their country. He noted that consideration and recognition of the families of those lost in military service was very inadequate. The foundation was started to help communities recognize, remember, and honor the sacrifice of Gold Star families. Now, I'll tell you where that one comes from, Jose. During World War II, if you walked around any town in the United States, you'd see these little banners, cloth banners that were hung in the window. And they had blue stripes, a white stripe down the middle, a gold fringe along the bottom. I think I got the colors wrong. It must have been white stripes with a blue stripe in the middle and a white star in the middle. That meant somebody in this household is in the armed service somewhere in the world. If that someone had gotten killed or had passed away in service, the star was not white, it was gold. Oh, that's where the Gold Star
That's where it came from.
Yeah. And in the little town I lived in, downtown in the park, right in the middle of town, there was this really large billboard, and it listed the names of every single person from that area who was in the service. And those who were dead had, guess what, behind their names? A gold star. So the gold star is kind of symbolic of killed in battle. Among the Foundation's activities is establishing Gold Star families monuments across the United States. On Thursday, Guam's monument was unveiled in Skinner Plaza. It's the first such monument in a U.S. territory and honors fallen service members and their families from Guam and the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, the Marshall Islands, Palau, and the Federated States of Micronesia. Williams retired after 20 years of service in the Marine Corps. He worked for 33 years as a veteran service rep for the Department of Veterans Affairs. A Navy ship named after Williams was put into service in 2018. Though Williams died on June 29, the work of his foundation lives on. We thank Williams for his service 78 years ago and his ongoing contributions to communities throughout the country. Good editorial. Not Blue Star material, Gold Star material, perhaps. Okay, let's take a peek at the card and see what we got to talk about today, the day after Liberation Day. I've got Rochelle Canto versus Levin. I've got the CNMI versus Neil Weird. I hope you can put that up on Facebook.
I will.
Neil Weird. Then I've got the debate. And Michigan versus Harbaugh. Then our PR man in Washington. Wokistan versus George Washington. Chief of Police versus the mayors. I don't think I'll get much farther than that today. Starting out, of course, with Paul Zerzan and systemic racism. I think everybody understands the analogy by now, so I won't have to spend a whole lot of time talking about it. We go to the Public Law 36-34 part of the agenda. Once again, the Northern Soil, Water, and Conservation District has item number 6 on their agenda, new business, but they don't tell us what the new business is, voiding every possible action they take during their meetings. I have Sunday's Post, which I'll show you one more time in case you forget what it looks like. Oh, wait a minute here. It's a little hard to get this lined up. Yeah. That's the Post's hatchet job on Michael San Nicolas. Supposed to be a 2-part story. Series. I guess we'll just have to wait for a while till the second part comes out. And we go to Rochelle Canto versus Levin. Now, Rochelle has been getting a lot of earned media today because she's been jousting with Jay Areola in a trial dealing with the Cirujano. What's his name?
San Nicolas.
San Nicolas. Yeah, so this person, from what I read in the papers, presents himself as a Cirujano. Now, for the uninitiated, a Cirujano is a Chamorro culture practitioner who has healing powers, it's said. He's supposed to know the different kinds of Amot Chamorro, where to find Amot Chamorro, what to prescribe for various chetnuts, etc. And then he's supposed to have sort of a spiritual dimension too, and a masseuse dimension. Now this guy, San Nicolas, from what we see, San Nicolas, his name is, from what we see in the papers, is using this whole spiritual healing thing as a con to accomplish sexual favors from females. And the outrage coming from the Chamorro community is just overwhelming. Yeah, beep, I guess. This guy is basically, from what we see in the papers, is making a travesty of this whole Cirujano thing. And where are all of the vocal Chamorros? Where is Hope Cristobal telling him that he's nothing but a colonizer? Where's Robert Underwood in his column? Where's Michael Bavacqua? All of these champions of the Chamorro culture, and this guy is making a mockery of it. If he comes out guilty or innocent, it doesn't make any difference. He's been exposed for what he's doing. And no one has said, I'm the first person, I think, that said boo about it. Anyhow, Rochelle and Co. have been in the news a lot because it's a hotly contested trial. It does have that interesting dimension of San Nicolas's modus operandi. So this is an article that ran in KOAM. A government prosecutor who has tried many high-profile cases in recent years has announced she's stepping down. Assistant Attorney General Rochelle U. Canto issued an open letter to the people of Guam in which she wrote, "With great sadness and regret, I must announce my resignation for reasons that the workload and the psychological demands of this position have become detrimental to my health. This decision has not come without considerable deliberation. My heart is burdened with heaviness because it has always called me to a life of public service. However, this job at this moment takes an intolerable toll on a mother of young toddlers." Now, this already puts her on the wrong side of the left, doesn't it? She's got small children. This letter is addressed to you because I have not lost sight of the fact that the people of Guam are my true employers. Attorney Canto also cited the lack of support and the low morale at the prosecution division. She further wrote, "It's the people of Guam who suffer the most. We are the only government Guam attorneys who work every Saturday and on holiday weekends. We are the only ones obligated to pick up the phone at 3 a.m. to assist GPD with legal advice on arrest." Now, let me explain that. When you're asleep, there's always somebody in the prosecution division who's on duty as the duty prosecutor. Now, we know the cops work overnight, right? Let's see, 3rd platoon is 2300 to 07. 2nd platoon is, I think it's 16 to 23. Does that come out right? It's 14 to 23. 14. So during the time when everybody else is asleep, there are cops out on the beat. And cops make arrests. Cops almost never make an arrest pursuant to a warrant, even though the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution tips its hat to warrants for arrest. In order to make a warrantless arrest, a police officer would have to be able to convince someone that a crime was committed, that he had probable cause to believe that a crime was committed, and that the person who committed the crime, and that the person he's arresting is the one who committed the crime, and that the crime is a felony. If all of those things are present, a cop can make a warrantless arrest. You know, he takes custody of the defendant, cuffs him, searches him, cuffs him, reads him his Miranda rights, you have a right to remain silent, etc., puts him in the squad car, takes him to, nowadays he takes him to one of the 2 lockups, fills out some papers and turns it over to the custodians of the lockup, and he goes back out on parole. Now, probable cause isn't always that easy to define. And a cop wants to make sure that it's a good bust so that the defendant can be prosecuted, that anything that he says in the process of any admissions he makes after being arrested, any evidence that's discovered, etc., is not suppressed because he didn't have probable cause to make the arrest. So there is a duty prosecutor. Every cop on the overnight duty has the home phone number of that duty prosecutor, or nowadays I guess it's a cell phone number, calls him, calls the duty prosecutor and says, "This is what I got," and lays it all out. And the prosecutor will ask a few questions, and he'll say, "Go ahead and bust him. It's a good bust. You don't have probable cause. Don't bust." So that requires somebody from the prosecution office to be alert every night of the week. Saturdays, we have a rule that anyone who is arrested must be brought before a magistrate no later than 48 hours of the arrest, which means we have magistrate hearings on Saturdays. So in order to do that, there has to be a prosecutor in court. And most of the magistrates are done by video from the Department of Corrections, but there still has to be a prosecutor to make arguments to the judge about bail and whatever else needs to be done. So they work, you know, a prosecutor's got a chance of working 6 days a week. A prosecutor's got a chance of getting woke up all the time at night. And of course, on Friday and Saturday, the getting woken up occurs a lot more frequently than Monday and Tuesday. So in addition to everything else, this is what comes with being a prosecutor. And that's not the rule with anybody else that works in the Attorney General's office, certainly not Levin himself. On my first day at this office, back to Rochelle's letter, on my first day at this office in 2012, there were 21 prosecutors and the chief prosecutor. Today, there are 10. Yet there are more trials today than there were 10 years ago. The strain has become unbearable. To say that this number causes an inability to prosecute crimes properly is an understatement. Now, our friend Repeat told us that this is not a bad situation for everybody because the public defenders love it. They say they really sharpened up their one-lost record because prosecutors are forced to bring cases to trial for which they haven't prepared as much as they could have, would have, or should have. And, of course, instead, if you're really shorthanded, you're much more willing to plea bargain than you are to take quick cases to trial. And of course, when everybody in the public defender's office knows you only got 10 prosecutors, they're going to drive really hard bargains on the plea bargain. Okay, so that's Rochelle's letter. And the Attorney General, I mean, you can almost, do you know the expression crocodile tears, Jose? Crocodile tears.
Yes, sir.
When you say that someone is crying crocodile tears, it goes to this myth that when a crocodile eats his prey, tears come out of his eyes. So crocodile tears are not a sign of sadness. They're a sign of satisfaction. And without knowing anything more, I'm looking at my paper here. It's damp. I think it was dampened by crocodile tears. Because here's what the Office of the Attorney General said. Not the Attorney General himself, but the office. The Office of Attorney General received Canto's resignation letter on Wednesday and accepted it effective immediately. We thank her for her recent 2 years of service with the office and wish her well. Does that sound like crocodile tears to you?
Mm-hmm.
It does to me, too. So she hasn't wrapped up the Coast San Nicolas trial, but apparently they've accepted her resignation now. So she doesn't have to go back to the courthouse. Now, as I recall, that case is before the jury. So somebody else can go down there. The heavy lifting is over. There's still work for the Attorney General, for a prosecutor to do. The jury sometimes comes out and asks questions. Counsel wants to put his 2 cents worth into the judge as to how the questions are treated. A motion for a mistrial may come up. So there still has to be somebody there. So, of course, now they're down to 9 people. So I guess out of the 9, they could find one more person to go down there.
It's a good thing we're not Germany. If they're down to 9 people.
9. Okay. Yeah, a little play on.
Just a dun-dun.
9, mein Herr. Hier gesprochen Sie Deutsch.
To Prosecutor Canto, it felt like 9.
Yeah. Okay, well, we heard Doug Moylan this morning on Ray's show, and Doug acquitted himself quite well. He laid it out from the inside. Here's what happens in a prosecution division. Here's how it works. You got a chief prosecutor, and it takes one person just to ride herd on the other prosecutors. He can't be running off to court himself, which I suspect he has to do now because they're so short-handed. Rochelle said that there were 21 when she started, and now they're down to 9. So, you know, when these things happen, obviously the cops know. You got to wonder if there might not be a Ferguson effect here. Ferguson effect means that, you know, after the young man was shot by a police officer in Ferguson, Missouri, there was such a public outrage. The cops were saying, yeah, if I go out and do my job, they might hang me from a lamppost. Well, it's kind of like that, except maybe it's more of a San Francisco effect. I go out and bust bad people, and because they're so short-handed, they aren't going to prosecute, or they'll give it away in a plea bargain. You got to wonder that. And then, of course, the other side certainly knows. Hey, you guys, you want to go out? You want to be a drug dealer? This is the best time to go in business for yourself. Because even if you got busted, they're so short-handed, they'll give you a real sweetheart deal for a plea bargain.
Now, I don't know how much push this got and the success of it. Do you recall a group, it could have been the Youth Congress, pushing for cashless bails?
I think that was the Youth Congress.
Yeah. I hope it didn't get any more push, because this is a great opportunity.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah.
For the criminal.
It is. And a horrible opportunity for the public of Guam, for the people of Guam. This, and this is something that the Wokistan has brought on us. Ever since I can remember, I always liked the sight of a police officer walking through my neighborhood or driving through my neighborhood or whatever. It gives you a kind of an internal sense. Yeah, that's good. Somebody out there looking out for us. But now, since the hagiography of George Floyd, we're supposed, if you really know what's going on, you're supposed to hate the police and defund the police and not like the police and say bad things about them, etc. But we need cops. We really need them. And we need prosecutors. The cops arrest the offenders, the prosecutors prosecute them. We know that from Law and Order. And this Attorney General just doesn't seem to be interested. It's like he's not interested at all.
And no amount of money or pay raises is going to fix morale.
No,
if it's low, it's low.
It's low. I understand there's a sign in the prosecution division's office that says the beatings will continue until morale improves. Yeah. So, and Doug this morning said that's the most important part of the Attorney General's office, the prosecution division. And I have to concur. If we've got criminals running loose on the streets, the rest of it is kind of moot. It kind of doesn't matter. So, sorry to see Rochelle Canto go. I give her high marks for dropping the dime on leaving on her way out. So, we'll move on to the next topic. But before I do, I've got somebody in the green. I got repeat in the green room. Okay, short break.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY. We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. Call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
All right, well, we just spent a little time on the resignation of Rochelle Canto from the Attorney General's office and a rather hard-nosed letter talking about what it's like to be a prosecutor right now. We have a regular tailgater on the line, one who is intimate knowledge of both the prosecution and the defense. He occasionally lapses into redundancy because he often repeats. Well, he won't do it this time, I'm sure. Right, Pete?
Good afternoon, Uncle Bob. Hey, I just wanted to add my 3 cents, I guess, because I always put in more than 2 cents about a different dimension about this. Prosecutors are a special breed. You cannot just conscript people to be prosecutors, and that's what's going on right now at the AG's office. And I only know this because I'm seeing them appear at court, and they're saying that they were forced to come down for prosecution. They're from the other divisions in the AG's office. And by the way, I do see Basil O'Malley on the regularly down at court. So he is, although he's the chief, he is covering court hearings and covering cases and taking on cases when, like you said, he should be riding herd. But anyways, getting back to the point that I was going to make is that prosecutors are a special breed, and a lot of them have a lot of experience and training. They're not fungible. You cannot just grab these new folks that just walked in the door 2 weeks ago and say, okay, now take the place of Christine Tenorio, or take the place of Rochelle Canto, or take the place of Jeremiah Luther. These guys that, I personally know tried their darndest to hang on and stay in there, but they were not just ignored. They were actually actively harassed and bullied to get to leave. So that's what we're dealing with, Guam. So I just wanted to throw my 3 cents in there, Uncle Bob.
Well, your 3 cents is worth a lot. Repeat. Don't repeat. So, it seems to me that the only hope on the horizon here is Doug Moylan, who understands prosecution. And when Doug was Attorney General, we weren't having this kind of conversation, that we weren't prosecuting people. We didn't have enough people in the office to prosecute offenders. It's just going to be a tough row to hoe from now until January, until we can put somebody else in there that'll actually do the job, right, Pete?
Absolutely. And again, you cannot just grab anybody with a law license and say, go prosecute. That's not how this works. And that's what I guess Levin thought he could do.
Yeah, that guy over there that specializes in wills and trusts can't go in and prosecute, can't handle a murder trial, right?
Oh no, not he'll deal with what happens after the death, but he can't, prosecute the guy that committed the death.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your insight. Repeat, we always appreciate your calls. You always add valuable information to the conversation.
All right.
Yeah, former prosecutor, current public defender in the alternate public defender service, someone that said, this isn't so bad. It's really good time to be in the defense bar. Okay, let's move on to the next item on the card. This is called the CNMI versus Neil Weird. And by way of background, Neil Weird is a gadfly who runs around filing all kinds of cases, court cases, dealing with our peculiar status as unincorporated territories. He filed a case, I don't remember which court, where he was trying to have UCAVA apply to people who lived in the territories. Now, UCAVA is a national law that says that if you move from one of the states to a foreign country, you could vote in the district that you last lived in the States. So I lived in the 1st District of Wisconsin. We're the ones that sent, I can't even remember the guy's name, became Secretary of Defense. Anyhow, we sent Paul Ryan was one of our most recent congressmen. We sent Paul Ryan to Washington from my district. So I pack up and leave the 1st District, and let's say that I move to Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. And I write a letter back to the folks, the city clerk in Elkhorn, saying, I moved to Mongolia. I'm never coming back to Wisconsin. I'm never going to eat cheese. I'm never, ever going to drink beer. I hate the Packers. I hope the Brewers lose every single game. Football should be abolished at the University of Wisconsin. In other words, I've cut all my ties with Wisconsin. I can still vote absentee in Wisconsin for that representative from the 1st District, senatorial election if there is one that election, presidential election if there is one that election. Now, my reading of the law is it's unconstitutional, but it's going to be really hard for anybody to find anybody who will challenge it. So it's probably going to stay on the books forever. Now, if I were to move from the 1st District of Wisconsin to Guam, I can't take advantage of UCAVA because I haven't moved overseas. But if I move from Guam to Mongolia, then I could vote in Guam absentee forever. That's the way it works. Folks in the CNMI, if you move from Wisconsin to CNMI, it works. UCAVA works. And the reason is that when UCAVA was put on the books, there was no CNMI. So there was a definition of states. All of the territories were included in the definition of states. In other words, you move from a state to a foreign country. But the CNMI wasn't because there was no CNMI. When the CNMI actually became a territory, the statute was not updated, so people from the CNMI could vote back in their home state. Now, the story I heard, and it's nothing but a story, some guys from California decided to try that. They voted absentee in California. Shortly thereafter, they got a letter from the income tax folks in California saying, how about paying up? So that kind of came to a screeching halt. He got in on the SSI thing. He tried to bring one of the SSI suits. His latest is to represent 3 Utahns. I don't know if Johnny Utah knows them or not, but 3 folks who live in Utah who are suing the United States, saying that people born in America and Samoa should be birthright citizens, just like people born in the other 4 territories. Now, everybody's in favor of that. All 3 of the Samoans living in Utah are wildly in favor of it. I think they're probably the only Samoans in the whole world that are, because everybody who lives in Samoa doesn't want it. The government of American Samoa doesn't want it. They've opposed the petition for writ of certiorari that is pending before the Supreme Court right now. But that's how Neil Weir busies himself, running around helping people out, like the people of Samoa, helping them get something that they've told them they don't want. So he has a petition for a writ of certiorari on that case. The U.S. government has until the 29th of this month to file papers in opposition or in agreement with Weir's petition. So far, the United States has opposed petitions on all of these, has filed papers in opposition to all of this kinds of petition. Now, I've written a lot and I've talked a lot about what a disaster overruling the insular cases would be for the territories. But, you know, people who should know better don't listen and have filed amicus briefs in favor of Weir's petition. People like former Governor Carl Gutierrez, former Lieutenant Governor Kaleo Moylan, former Supreme Court Justice Benjamin Cruz, Guam Delegate Michael San Nicolas. Bad, Michael, bad. Vice Speaker Tina Rose Munga Barnes. No surprise there, yeah. So people who should know better are supporting this. And, you know, the word racist always comes up when anybody mentions the insular cases, and I've gone through it so many times. Ann Parasatori said something, had a quote that she took on national TV that was absolutely wrong. You know, and you wonder how someone who says something so stupid and so wrong can maintain a position at the University of Guam? I'll give you a two-word answer: Robert Underwood. and I'll give you another answer. This is a graphic answer. There you go. There's the answer. The rice is red. Yeah, the insular cases are racist, therefore the insular cases must be overruled. We've only seen one instance in one newspaper where any one of the major outlets here, the two TV stations, the two newspapers, have picked up on the other side of overruling insular cases, and that was the Post a couple weeks ago when the news of Weir's petition first came up. Phil Leon Guerrero had the good sense to call me up and ask me about it, and I was finally able to lay out that case in one of the four major news outlets, other than in a letter to the editor or Pacific Island Times. Okay, now there's in today's Pacific, today's Post, there's an article that ran on the CNN. There's a little CNMI news area, and a guy named Brian Manapat wrote this article concerning the insular cases, and I will read it. Lawyer: overturning insular cases will invite constitutional crisis in the Northern Mariana Islands. The Northern Mariana Islands Descent Corporation and the United Carolinian Association have filed amicus briefs in the Supreme Court opposing the petition of 3 American Samoans who have asked the court to overturn the insular cases. So if you know anything about the Northern Marianas, you know that the indigenous people are Chamorros. You know that during the Spanish regime, that the Spanish cleared all of the Chamorros out of the Northern Marianas, brought them down here because it'd be easier to control them. And during their absence, Carolinians from area Sonsorol and that area of Micronesians migrated up and inhabited the Northern Marianas. There's still a significant population of Carolinians there that, for compact impact, or as you were for covenant purposes, have the same rights and privileges as the indigenous Chamorros. So this amicus brief was filed by the Northern Marianas Descent Corporation and the United Carolinian Association. You figure these guys probably have some kind of a handle on what's not good for Saipan. The article goes on to say, these are a set of century-old rulings used to deny equal rights and benefits to the residents of American Samoa, Puerto Rico, Guam, and other territories. I think that's probably coming from Weir's papers. The two non-governmental organizations jointly filed the Friend of the Court brief through attorney Joseph Horry on July 13. NMDC and UCA have no quarrel with the individuals who are seeking U.S. citizenship by way of the petition, Horry said. However, they believe it is misguided, inconsiderate, and dangerous for them to do so by attacking the insular cases. Those cases are the legal foundation of Article 12 of Commonwealth Senate, thus the entire CNMI covenant. Overturning them would invite a constitutional crisis in the CNMI, Horry added. He said the covenant creates a bilateral political union between the United States and the CNMI, and it sets out certain conditions which shall prevail in the CNMI, notwithstanding any conflict with the U.S. Constitution. One of these is that neither grand nor petty jury shall be required for trial by local law. Another is that each of the 3 principal islands of the CNMI, that's Saipan, Tinian, and Luta, shall have equal representation in one house of the CNMI legislature, regardless of differences in population. A third, the condition of chief concern to the amici is the acquisition of long-term interests in real property, and the CNMI shall be restricted to persons of Northern Marianas descent, Chamorros or Carolinians only. Each of these conditions likely conflicts with one or more provisions of the United States Constitution, Horry said, that they're explicitly recognized in the covenant as, quote, fundamental provisions to which no change is permissible without the agreement of both the United States and the CNMI. They were integral matters of sufficient importance that the covenant could not have been adopted without them, Horry said. All have been challenged on constitutional grounds, but all have been upheld. And they've been upheld on the specific authority of the insular cases. Let's take a short break here.
It's a party in the park. The Governor's Office, Mayor's Council of Guam, and GDB invite you to Liberation Bandana Friday, 11 to 10, July 22nd at Ipao Beach. Food trucks, local bands, the Marine Corps Band, and Japan's DJ Yamato screaming to a spectacular finale during the drones and fireworks show. Plus, bring activities and rides for kids.
Thanks to Guam Economic Development Authority, Seventh-day Adventist Clinic, Guam International Airport Authority, KUAM Communications, Port Authority of Guam, Cortec, Bank of Guam, Guam TV Productions, Guam Music, PHR Ken Micronesia, and St. Luke's Medical Center.
Choice Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning shows. Hands down winners of Guam's morning radio battle. Daryl Lizama grooves his way through Boss 104 playing Guam's favorite classic hits. Morning Mouth Ray Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all three.
671-888-7346. That's 888-REIO.
Okay, so we're talking about opposition coming from the Northern Marianas to Neil Weir's petition for certiorari, hoping to get before the Supreme Court to have the insular cases overruled. Going on with this article, the overruling of those cases would therefore endanger key covenant provisions on which the CNMI's existence rests, Horry said. In particular, he said it would endanger the land alienation restriction, which enables the people of the Northern Marianas to, quote, retain the ownership of their most precious asset, their land. Because of the reliance that has been placed on their validity by the people of the Northern Marianas, and because they were correctly decided in the first instance. Now, that's interesting. They were correctly decided in the first instance. The insular cases should not be revised or overruled, and the petition for writ of certiorari, which seeks to overturn them, should be denied. Alternatively, Horry added, if the petition is granted, the writ should be limited to any asserted ground for citizenship which do not implicate the insular cases. 3 American Samoans who are residents of Utah, John Fitisimanu, who probably calls himself Johnny Utah, Pale Tuli, and Rosavita Tuli have petitioned the Supreme Court for a writ of certiorari to take up their case, which challenges the validity of the previous insular case rulings that they say deny them equal rights. American Samoans born in American Samoa are considered U.S. nationals, while those born on Guam, the Northern Marianas, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands are U.S. citizens. The petition highlighted the rights denied to American Samoan nationals living in the U.S. The plaintiffs argue that the 14th Amendment Citizenship Clause, which grants birthright citizenship to persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, extended the right to anyone born in U.S.-controlled territories. John Fattisimano was denied the right to vote. Paule Tule cannot seek the job he wants as a police officer, and Rosavita is unable to sponsor. No, this part doesn't make any sense. Rosavita Tule is unable to sponsor immigrant family members who wish to move to the U.S. Now, how would Rosavita have immigrant family members? Now, the only thing I can think of is that Rosavita is from American Samoa, and she has family members who live in Samoa, what used to be called Western Samoa, which is an independent country. Coming from American Samoa, you're not an immigrant. You wouldn't go through the sponsorship process. So she wants to be a U.S. citizen, so she can bring immigrants into the United States. That's a good reason, right? Yeah, that's a great reason. So the bottom line here is that this is a horrible idea, overruling the insular cases. It sounds really good if you bite the shiny apple called "it's racist." If you were a student of Ann Parasatori and believe the BS that she put out on national TV, then perhaps it sounds really good. But it's not really good. And I wrote a column in Pacific Island Times that probably some of you have already read, that I think lays it out quite clearly. And I'm going to take a few minutes to read not the whole column, but parts of it. And what my column is a mock. I'm mocking what a U.S. Supreme Court opinion could look like if Weir's petition were granted and it took on the insular cases. We'll do that right after the Pope Cristobal show. Oh, wait, it's not Monday. It's the Lulian Guerrero show.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Police officer murdered. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. In Rochester, New York, 2 police officers shot by a man who approached them on the street Thursday evening, rushed to the hospital. One of them died of his injuries. Mayor Malik Evans calls it a tragedy for the city.
We ask for prayers for these officers, their family, the Rochester Police Department, and the entire city of Rochester.
Only hours before, Mayor Evans had declared a state of emergency in the city because of rampant violence in Rochester. Just outside Rochester in Parenton, New York Congressman Lee Zeldin was attacked Thursday evening and nearly stabbed at a campaign event.
Man got on stage as Zeldin delivered a speech on bail reform at a VFW. The attacker wrestled with Zeldin, pulled out some type of blade. Congressman Zeldin released a statement grateful for the attendees who stepped up quickly to assist and the law enforcement officers who quickly responded. Zeldin's opponent this fall, Governor Kathy Hochul, tweeting, "I condemn this violent behavior in the strongest terms possible. It has no place in New York."
Fox's Shannon Bream. Representative Zeldin is okay. The suspect has been arrested and charged with second-degree attempted assault. Zeldin predicting he'll be released with no bail. The January 6th committee holding another primetime presentation Thursday evening with testimony from 2 former White House aides who resigned after the incursion at the Capitol. Committee Vice Chair Representative Lynn Cheney summing up what the critics believe is the committee's goal.
Can a president who is willing to make the choices
Donald Trump made during the violence of January 6th ever be trusted with any position of authority in our great nation again.
Former White House advisor Steve Bannon's lawyers chose not to present any defense witnesses before resting their case in his federal contempt trial Thursday. Bannon is accused of not complying with the January 6th committee subpoena. Closing arguments begin later this morning. America is listening to Fox News.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
The president will isolate at the White House through early next week after testing COVID positive.
President Biden is experiencing mild symptoms like a dry cough, runny nose, and fatigue. But in a video posted to social media, he says he's doing well.
We're getting a lot of work done. We're going to continue to get it done. And in the meantime, thanks for your concern and keep the faith. It's going to be okay.
The president is fully vaccinated and double boosted for COVID. His physician has started treatment of the antiviral drug Paxlovid. And White House COVID coordinator Dr. Ashish Jha says
his risk of serious illness is dramatically lower.
Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre says the White House medical unit has begun contact tracing to identify close contacts of the president. On Capitol Hill, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
The first case of polio in the United States since 2013 has been diagnosed in an adult in Rockland County, New York, not vaccinated. Weeks after the Supreme Court abortion decision, protests continue outside the homes of conservative justices.
The Washington Post reporting that even Justice Brett Kavanaugh's pro-choice neighbors are tired of the demonstrations, calling them out of control. One woman who first marched for reproductive rights in middle school says she understands where their emotion comes from, but she has had enough, saying the protests are so disturbing. She and her family leave for long dinners just to get away from their home, which is only a half a block from Kavanaugh's. Now, say kids who live on the street are afraid to leave their homes. Residents that have confronted the protesters have been called fascist and Karens. But one of the protesters calls the weekly demonstrations a minor inconvenience.
Fox's Ashley Strohmeyer. The FBI says it found no evidence of missing Teamsters boss Jimmy Hoffa during a search of land under New Jersey's Pulaski Skyway. The FBI searched there in June, said they found no evidence. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Half a day. Patsy Gogri from Security Title here with information about what a title company does. The title side of our business determines who owns a property and guarantees your ownership with a title insurance policy. The escrow side acts as an independent third party, managing the transfer of money and documents between the buyer, seller, lenders, and others. Security Title has a management of real estate closing down to a science. Give us a call. We are here to help.
Are you looking for a new place to hang out with your friends? Let's go along the sidelines at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Located at 154 Iriarty Road, Unit 4 and 5 in Tamuning behind Royal Bigs. Sidelines, a hidden gem with nothing but great things to offer. Great atmosphere, great food, top shelf drinks, and a great team. What are we waiting for? Let the fun begin at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. See you there.
We're already Pica's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better.
Announcing the point on Alexa.
In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream The Point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream The Point.
Okay, we've got the Lou Leon Guerrero show here, where Lou tells us what the proper disposition of a baby born alive is. If it were a book, I guess it would be Lou Leon Guerrero on infanticide. So if you haven't seen it, you're going to make sure you want to stay tuned. But I got Repeat on the line. He wants to talk a little bit about Neil Weird, and I don't want to have to make him wait till the end of the Lou Leon Guerrero show. So tell me about Neil Weird. Repeat.
Yes, you know, I remember I told you when I first learned about the insular cases that it struck me basically as cases regarding commerce, first of all, and second of all, you know, the applicability of the U.S. flag on U.S. territories. That's what it was about. You know, the whole thing about its races and using the word aliens and all that, when I first read that, I didn't fall trap to the presentism, right? Because aliens is now a bad word ever since the 1980s and the illegal alien rush in the southern border. But back in the early 1900s, alien simply meant foreign. It didn't mean...
You know what? You know what, Pete? I went to Canada once, and when I was in Canada, I was an alien.
Absolutely. See,
but I got over it.
Just like the word queer just used to mean weird, right?
Yeah.
So we can make it Neil Queer as his name now, right? But it didn't mean homosexual back then. It just meant weird. You know, unusual. So when the Supreme Court opinion in 1901 mentioned alien races, all they meant was foreign, right? And when they said they're not used to Anglo-Saxon ways, so we ought not to shove our traditions down their throat. You know, it was a recognition that these people that lived out in these territories. Okay, go ahead.
Let me jump in there. You know, I analyzed that, and I wrote it up quite clearly. I'll email it to you if you haven't seen it. In a letter I wrote to Robert Underwood complaining about Ann Parasitore and her BS. And what that was a hypothetical statement. The justices were talking about ex proprio vigere, yes or no. 5 no, 4 yes. And one of the justices said the Constitution should not automatically apply to acquired territories because if we acquire some other territory with alien races that don't understand our Anglo-Saxon way. So it wasn't about the islands that were taken from Spain. It was a hypothetical statement about what could happen in the future and the perils of the ex proprio vigere application. So it didn't even apply to the Guam, the Philippines, Puerto Rico, Cuba, etc. But it didn't make any difference. And that's why, you know, when I talk about Ann Parasitore, I don't accuse her of cherry picker. I accuse her of horse apple picking. Go ahead, Pete.
Right, and twisting it. Because, you know, I agree that in the dictum in that couple of sentences, the justice was talking about, you know, prospectively, right? Mm-hmm. But still, I mean, the concept that, you know, hey, we are now expanding, and we so happen to have these folks that have their own traditions, right? We shouldn't just erase their traditions and shove our Anglo-Saxon traditions down their throat. You know, if later on...
Aren't you the one they call Robert Underwood?
Underwood? What did I call him?
What you just said sounds like something Robert Underwood would say. We shouldn't just shove our... Right? Go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, so... But I think actually that language or that argument in the opinion was actually beneficial to the natives. You know, it's saying, hey, look, they have their own culture and traditions. Let's not just, you know, in one fell swoop, just delete their own culture and you know, and shove ours down their throats. Let's not let it apply. And he did say, you know, if later on that's something that they feel like they like and adopt it, then they can adopt it, right? And so that's what American Samoa is facing, whether or not to adopt. And right now they continue to say, no, we rather stay with our own cultural tradition. And then you have Neil Queer coming in and saying, no, we're going to shove our Anglo-Saxon ways down your throats. That's what Neil Queer is doing.
All in the name of self-determination.
And saviorism.
Yeah. Good points, Pete.
All right.
Thank you,
Thanks.
sir.
I had to repeat. I couldn't resist.
Okay, you did good. Thanks again.
Since we're speaking of the language of the past, Neil sounds like a miserable person. So while he might be queer, he certainly is not gay.
Yeah, that's another one. You know, gay used to mean
happy.
Happy. Yeah. I've mentioned this before, but a bar opened outside Lake Geneva in 1961 or 62, and they named the bar Gay 60s, picking up on Gay 90s, you know.
Deck the halls, down we now are gay apparel.
Exactly. Yeah, I had a couple of friends, Gay Hans and Gay Ward. They were fine then. I imagine they probably filed petitions to change their names as they grew older. Okay, let's go to the Lulian Guerrero show, Jose.
Good afternoon. My name is Lulian Guerrero, and thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you some of my thoughts and comments regarding Bill 195-32. I am aware that there is already federal legislation that addresses the issue at hand, thus making this legislation unnecessary. As I read the bill, what was glaring to me is that you are now walking into the realm of medical practice that is not your area of expertise. By passing this bill, you're saying to me that you are allowing a special interest group to say that you and they know better than the experts in obstetrics, family practice, pediatrics, neonatology, and medicine. By way of this bill, you have taken away the discretion, the responsibility, the acumen, and the judgment of that medical professional who is on the ground experiencing the circumstances and is more equipped to make the decisions. There are medical standards vetted through scientific research and medical knowledge that govern the practice of doctors and guide them in making their decisions. By way of this bill, you have said to our doctors, who are well respected and highly regarded in our community, we have no confidence in your ability. This bill not only diminishes the medical profession, but it further carries them to jail by criminalizing them if they refuse to abide by the mandate. By way of this bill, you have affirmed that doctor to have committed aggravated murder, and for that crime, we will put that doctor in jail for life. And by the way, they will rot in jail because you are not eligible for parole, work release, or educational programs outside the confines of prison. If this bill passes, we as a community, through your representation, will have mandated a government policy that ignores medical expertise and puts not only our doctors, but also our nurses, medical assistants, our physician assistants, and any health professional present at that event, and we're putting them in jail. These health professionals are treasures. They are valuable resources. We are working hard to recruit and retain them, and now we send them a message that they may end up in jail for practicing their profession. I know and truly believe, Senators, that this is not the route you want to travel. This bill is very anti-quality of life because it does not consider the expense that the family will incur as a result of mandating treatment that most likely will not result in a quality of life outcome for the infant. Instead, what this bill does is it will burden the family with enormous medical bills. On the conservative side, if care and treatment is given for a year, that family or the government, if the infant becomes a ward of the territory, will at a minimum pay $273,000 a year just on hospital room charges. This does not include pharmaceuticals, medical supplies, and health professional time. So it will be $273,000 plus a year. This means taking away limited resources that could be used by others that may have a better chance of a quality of life. I know that some will say you cannot put a price tag on life and money should not be a factor. But the reality of the situation is the family, the government, does not have the human and economic resource to provide the care that is required to sustain a life that medical science will tell you is not living a quality of life. You struggle daily to meet the challenges of healthcare costs. We saw that with the hospital and health insurance debates that you guys made. And now this bill will further add on to the challenges when it does not have to. Lastly, I would like to make this comment. We all have a greater challenge in our island. The community's more concerned on how we can decrease our unemployment rate of 13.3%. We are very concerned on how we can work together to provide more jobs because our job growth has been stagnant over the last 5 years. We are very concerned about access to health care. We are very concerned that we are not screaming to the federal government to include us in the health insurance exchange so that we can have affordable health care to everyone. We are very concerned about how we can provide affordable housing to many first-time home owners. We are extremely concerned about the rising crimes we see today. People do not feel safe in their homes. Women are scared to go to the grocery stores alone because they fear that they could be robbed in the middle of the day. Employees do not feel safe in their work environment. Domestic violence is on the rise. Sexual assault of minors and rape cases are on the rise. You have in your campaigns pledged to work on these issues. You were all voted to help address these concerns. The issues you ran on were why you are my senators. Most of the voters did not vote for you based on whether you are pro-choice or pro-life. Please, let's get back on track to the more compelling issues at hand that have a greater impact to the quality of life of our people. I ask that when you are considering this bill to seriously consider the negative consequences of this piece of legislation that I have just enumerated. Please talk to as many people as you feel is necessary. Talk to the experts that can give you factual and objective information. I trust that you will do your due diligence, and I know that you will act in favor of the greater good of our community. And in so doing, you will arrive to the conclusion that this bill should not pass. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, there you have it. The Lou Leon Guerrero show which we play for you every Friday. I told you I thought today was Monday. I thought we were going to do Hope Show. So Lou Leon Guerrero was talking about a bill that was before the legislature that would require caregivers to treat a baby that was born after a botched abortion. The mother sought an abortion. The abortion didn't work. The baby was born alive. Lou Leon Guerrero's approach to that is, well, the baby was born alive, so what we've got to do is let the baby die. because it would just cost us too much to allow that baby to live. And she posited the rule, the touchstone, and that is the decision as to life or death must be made by doctors, and a doctor then would be within the realms of his profession to say, because this baby will not have a good quality of life, we will do nothing just to protect its life. We'll just let the baby lay on the table and die. Now, if that's the right kind of rule, would we apply it in every case? Let's say we've got an older fellow. You could kind of fill in the blank with who you might think of there. Some guy with gray hair and a white, no. I was going to say gray hair and a white mustache, but any person who's up in his years, and let's say that person has a stroke, and the stroke is so debilitating that he's not going to have the use of his legs. He'll only have a little bit of the use of his arms. He's going to be, if not bedridden, at least wheelchair-ridden for the rest of his life. And the doctor has the opportunity to use a clot buster drug to save the guy's life, or say, well, the quality of his life is just not going to be good. We'll just let him lay here and die. That's what Lou wants you to do. Only it's with her, in her situation, it's a baby, somebody at the beginning of life. So she's introduced the whole theory of a cost-benefit analysis into the practice of medicine. Who does the analyzing? A doctor. What are the elements of the cost-benefit analysis? Weigh the cost of keeping the baby, the person, the old person, the madamko, whatever, alive against the quality of life. And so you got, intersecting lives. The less quality of life, the greater the cost, let him die. That's what she's saying.
And this sounds eerily familiar to that misrepresented letter that the person wrote that says she's not going to be talking to Republicans anymore, and correlated with the Nazi regime. Because this mindset is actually what happened during World War II. And this is not some Godwin's theory where on the internet where if you disagree with an argument, you automatically call that person a Nazi.
Yeah.
This is exactly what that regime did.
Yeah.
They deduced, or they decided who had a quality of life and who didn't.
And they didn't start out with ethnicity. They started out with people with various kinds of disabilities. And they got the people used to the idea, well, these are defective humans, so we should, take them and put them, and they desensitize the people to that whole
Absolutely.
idea.
And if people are saying, well, that happened way back in the 40s, that can never happen again in modern times. Well, let's give them Iceland, for example, where the original headline was Iceland has eliminated Down syndrome births. But then when you dig deeper in the story, it's because everyone that tested with the possibility of Down syndrome was terminated or aborted in the womb.
Yeah.
And there you go. That's where it started, and it happened like about 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. Oh, wow, no more Down. That's quite a medical breakthrough until you figure out what it's all about. There's a story that's popping around the internet right now about a person who has Down syndrome, who is a model, a successful model. And, there are lots of stories around about folks with Downs being successful human beings. Yeah, but that's our governor, abortion. We need abortion on Guam. If we don't have one, we'll send Jane Flores out to find one. We've got to have medical, chemical abortions, etc. And if a child survives an abortion, let him die. Don't do anything to prolong that child's life. It's horrendous. It's very frightening, but we have no one to blame but ourselves. Lulian Guerrero got the most votes in the last gubernatorial election. So there you are. Okay, let's go back to Neil Weird. And we got to take a break again. Okay, let's head for Chicago and catch up with the Cubs at Wrigley Field.
Subway's Eat Fresh Refresh brings you the sequel to the Sweet Onion Chicken Teriyaki. Enjoy the new Sweet Onion Steak Teriyaki. Delight your taste buds with tender, juicy steak marinated in the tangy new Sweet Onion Teriyaki sauce and stacked high on toasted artisan Italian bread, topped with American cheese, green peppers, red onions, and drizzled with tangy new Sweet Onion Teriyaki sauce. The new Sweet Onion Steak Teriyaki is the height of food craveability. Give in to your cravings at Subway. Eat fresh.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Okay, here we are, Wrigley Field in Chicago. Means I only got 2 more innings left, and I finish up another whole week of tall tales. 70 hours of deprivation, no tall tales until 1600 Monday. But we'll make the best out of the half an hour we got left to go here, the 2 innings left in this ball game. So I finished reading an article that ran in the Post about some folks in the Northern Marianas who don't think that overruling the Insular cases would be a good idea. And in fact, they think it would be a horrible idea and that it would create a constitutional crisis in the Northern Marianas. So I wrote a mock Supreme Court decision that got published in this month's Pacific Island Times. You might want to spend $1.25 and pick it up. It's a good article, of course. And what I did was I pretended I was writing a Supreme Court decision. And I started it out like this. Per curiam, in the flagship of the Insular cases, Downs versus Bidwell, we held. And this is what the Insular cases, the main one, actually says. We are therefore of the opinion that the island of Puerto Rico is a territory appurtenant and belonging to the United States, but not a part of the United States within the revenue clauses of the Constitution. That the Foraker Act is constitutional so far as it imposes duties upon imports from such island, and the plaintiff cannot recover back the duties exacted in this case. Bidwell was a collector of customs for New York. Downs was a guy who raised bananas in Puerto Rico, imported them into New York, had to pay a tariff, sued to recover. The case got all the way to the Supreme Court. I just read the holding. How many times did you hear the words alien races or Anglo-Saxon in the holding of the court? Not at all, because that wasn't the holding. So then, if the Supreme Court, that's the rule. And that rule, by extrapolation, applied to the other times that matters involving the islands recovered or taken from Spain came up. And the governing principle is that the Constitution does not apply in the territories ex proprio vigere. Little Law and Order notebook there, Jose. Ex proprio vigere, of its own force. Constitution does not follow the flag. That's what the Insular cases said. Now, This is what how the Supreme Court could write if they were going to overrule the insular cases. They could say, further examination of Downs revealed by our decisions in Reed versus Covert and Boumediene versus Bush and other cases causes our determination that Downs versus Bidwell and all our cases dependent upon it, properly known as the insular cases, must be overruled. We therefore overrule Downs and hold, one, that the insular cases, as you were, that the revenue clauses are fully applicable in the territories. Revenue clauses, income tax, tariff, etc. The Constitution applies to the territories ex proprio vigere, that the territories are not merely appurtenant in belonging to the United States, but are a part thereof and incorporated therein, just as were Hawaii and Alaska before statehood. That's what a decision overruling the insular cases would sound like. That would mean that Guam would then become an incorporated territory like Hawaii was before statehood. That would mean the income tax applies, all of the tariffs apply, no more GITA qualifying certificates, U.S. Customs guys at the port enforcing the customs rules of the United States. No, we wouldn't get to vote for president, just like the folks in Hawaii had one non-voting delegate to Congress. That's what we would have. We would have all of the disadvantages of statehood, but none of the advantages. There would be no self-determination because, as the article from the Post pointed out, their particular arrangement is only possible because of the insular cases. The insular cases and Article 4, Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution say that the Congress can make needful rules and regulations for the governance and disposal of the territory of the United States. When Guam becomes integrated into the United States as an incorporated territory, no more rules and regulations. It's the Constitution. No more disposing of the territory. The United States was able to dispose of the Philippines because of, guess what, the insular cases. So once Guam becomes an incorporated territory, it will stay an incorporated territory forever, because the only way out of incorporated territory status is statehood.
Or secession.
Or secession. Yeah.
And that didn't grow for the southern states.
That didn't, yeah. That would be the only way out. So no more self-determination, no more Melvin Wampat and his commission on Chamorro self-determination. All of that stuff is over. So it's a classic case of people, learning a few key phrases. The old, little knowledge is a dangerous thing. Yeah. Well, a tiny bit of knowledge can be catastrophic, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. Even coming from the separatists and the self-determinationists, etc. So I wind up my column laying the blame right where it belongs. Several officials of the various jurisdictions, to include former Governor Carl Gutierrez, former Lieutenant Governor Kaleo Moylan, former Supreme Court Justice Benjamin Cruz, Guam Delegate Michael San Nicolas, and Vice Speaker Tina Rose Munga Barnes, have as amicus curiae entreated with us to bring about the result we reached today. In other words, those are the folks that are saying, please overrule the insular cases and bring this horrible, horrible disaster on our heads.
Who is the representative who came from America Samoa on Tall Tales?
Amata Radhawagan.
And she came and spoke specifically that she was not in favor of overturning the insular cases, although she softly said that there was racism in the language, which she had to, I guess. I don't know why anyone would have to. But, that was said recently, and it didn't really bat an eye in media at all. Didn't even make it to the papers.
Right.
But CNMI is much closer, and people can relate to that.
Mhm.
And if this goes ignored or unspoken about, or not, or no response from Underwood or anybody else, I'm going to suspect that they really don't want to learn the real deal about the insider cases.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I ticked off the names of those who filed amicus, and then go on to say counsel being involved. In other words, they talked to lawyers at the time they did this. We assume that the ramifications of the result they seek are known to them. They therefore must shoulder the heavy burden of persuading their fellow islanders of the wisdom of their advocacy. Fiat justitia ruit caelum. May the heavens fall, but let justice be done. And that's basically what they're saying. We want this so bad that the heavens are going to fall on all 5 of these islands. No talk about independence for Puerto Rico. We get slapped with an impossible tax burden. CNMI loses all the good stuff out of their covenant. American Samoans lose Fa'a Samoa, their way of life, that whole package. But the insular cases are racist, so, we got to do that. We heard Ann Hattori on last week tonight, so we know what it's all about. Very, very sad, very, very dumb that these people would get involved with something like this with such a small amount of knowledge of what they're actually asking for. Okay, I got about 20 minutes to go, so I'm probably going to spend the rest of that time on the great debate. That would be the debate that occurred on Wednesday night between Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio and Lieutenant Governor aspirant Sabrina Salas Montanani. Well, I start right out by saying Tenorio's got the advantage. I don't want to be saying Sabrina Salas Montanani every time I have to deal with it. Your name is too long. Just call yourself Salas. Salas is if I could change my Janinu Taleka Inano para Inaan Samoro Masjahu Salas. Sa Salas Kifino English palindrome na klase.
And didn't she read Ricky Tikki Tambo as a kid?
It's a palindrome. You could spell it backwards and forwards. It doesn't matter. S-A-L-A-S.
Oh, just the Salas.
Yeah. That's the one I'd pick. Yeah. Backwards or forwards, it doesn't matter. Vote for Salas. Right? And then it has a nice cognate in English. S-O-L-A-C-E. You know how that's pronounced? Solace. They were heartbroken when the fire burned down their house. So our whole family spent the afternoon providing solace to them. That would be a great name for a candidate. Vote Solace for Solace.
And that's free.
Yeah.
I hope she's listening.
Yeah, so from now on, for Tall Tales purposes, Sabrina Salas Montanani shall be known as Solace or Bree Solace. Because I don't want to go as bad as Kelly Marsh Titano. It just takes too long. Okay, so starting out with the article that ran in the Daily News. There needs to be balance when it comes to providing federal pandemic relief to the island, said Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio, who participated in a debate Wednesday night with Bree Salas, who is running for lieutenant governor with Guam delegate Mike San Nicolas. San Nicolas, when he first came out, told us to make long-term investments. Now he's saying blow the cash. Tenorio said during the debate, which was organized by Choice Broadcasting and Candid News. When the people need aid, we provide it. We did it in stimulus payments. We did it in All Rise. We did it in Programa Salapi. Tenorio said. No one's asking you to blow the cash, Bree Solis said in response. What we're asking you is to stop hoarding the cash. We got over $500 million in American Rescue Plan money over a year ago. Half of it's still sitting in a bank, gaining interest instead of going to the people's interest. Governor Lulian Guerrero and Tenorio are running, of course. Change in leadership. I'm going to talk about the need for change in leadership, Bree Solis said during her opening statement. I'm here to be a voice for you and to fight for you because we believe that you deserve better. Tenorio said the administration kept its promises during its term and said he's optimistic about the island's economic opportunities post-pandemic, including plans for a new hospital. You're going to have two choices for the primary election. You're going to have a choice between a team with a record of accomplishment or a team that doesn't have that experience, Tenorio said. Tenorio, during the debate, questioned San Nicolas' integrity, stating Bree Solis would have more credibility with the federal government than San Nicolas, who was the subject of a congressional ethics investigation. The House Ethics Committee, in a report issued in June, found there is, substantial evidence, of potential crimes by San Nicolas. According to the report, there's evidence San Nicolas violated campaign finance laws in connection with the 2018 election by knowingly accepting a large cash contribution. I'm going to get back to I'm going to leave the rest of this behind here. I don't know why we have to fill this whole article about the debate with this. It's important, but let's concentrate on the debate. Bree Solis accused Tenorio of continuing a symphony of spin about the ethics investigation. The debate included 3 rounds of questions on issues related to health care, cost of living, regional migrants, the military buildup, political status, education, and public safety. Here is a summary of their responses. On the need for better health care services on the island. Quote, what Congressman San Nicolas and I will do is recruit and retain the specialists and physicians we need on Guam, Bree Solis said. This is exactly why we need a new hospital, Tenorio said. To attract that kind of talent, we have to have state-of-the-art facilities for them to practice. On ensuring public school students are ready for college or a career. Bree Solis said the school board approved a 5-year plan to improve student performance, and the San Nicolas administration would provide schools with resources so the plan can move forward. Tenorio said folk education already is part of the curriculum in the public high schools, and the administration allocated federal education stabilization money to nonprofit groups and schools to assist a wide range of students. I'm going to break here, head for Churchill Downs, come back and finish this up in the home stretch.
The Governor's Office, Mayor's Council of Guam, and GVB invite you to Liberation Bandana Friday, 11 to 10, July 22nd at Ipao Beach. Food trucks, local bands, the Marine Corps Band, and Japan's DJ Yamato spin into a spectacular finale during the drones and fireworks show. Plus, free activities and rides for kids.
Thanks to Guam Economic Development Authority, Seventh-day Adventist Clinic, Guam International Airport Authority, KUAM Communications, Port Authority of Guam, Cortec, Bank of Guam, Guam TV Productions, Guam Music, PHR Ken Micronesia, and St. Luke's Medical Center.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
On the issue of Guam benefiting from the military buildup, Tenorio said the military, during a recent meeting, informed the administration that the military buildup will take several years longer than originally stated, possibly till 2030. That means more growth and economic expansion to benefit businesses and Guam residents. What we really need right now is a critical partner with the Department of Defense to make sure that Guam gets its fair share of that, he said. Yeah, you need a partner. That's why you send Tony Babauta back there to badmouth everybody. That's a good call. Salas said a federal report states there are millions of dollars in uncollected revenue from military contractors. She did not say what should be done about it. On the issue of whether Guam is safe, the answer is no, Salas said. She said the Leon Guerrero administration held a press conference to show off police cars and ambulances, but there are not enough workers for those vehicles. Tenorio said the administration has been doing everything it can to provide equipment, supplies, more pay to public safety officers. We were able to implement a pay increase that's going to be sustained. Your running mate had 6 years in Guam legislature to expand the budgets of public safety officers, and he didn't. On insurance, ensuring migrants from the freely associated states have sufficient means of support coming to Guam. From the FSM that are flagged because they have prior convictions. So definitely I think we should be doing a better job in vetting them. Unfortunately, we can't enforce it, Tenorio said. If we could, we would. We really would like ICE to focus on those that have these violent offenses and return them to their island of origin. Finally, on issues of whether Guam should pursue independence, free association, or statehood, I support any relationship that allows, this is Salas, I support any relationship that allows Guam to stand independently. Whoa. But also have this connection and protection of the United States, Salas Matanani said. No. Tenorio said it would be irresponsible for him to indicate a preference because the administration would be conducting the political status election. I thought the election commission would be doing that. Okay, so there it is.
They both had no idea what they were talking about.
Really?
And that's what made it sad. It's better they just didn't answer the question.
It is. It would have been. So there we are. Now I'm going to give you my own take. Now, Bonnie said she thought that nobody won the debate and stated her reasons. Well, this is my take on it. A debate like this, you could win the debate but lose the election. In a situation like this, what you are trying to do is gain voters, not win debates. If you can gain more voters by, quote, losing the debate, that's where the action is. I've been watching debates for 62 years. 1960, John F. Kennedy versus Richard Nixon. I watched it on TV.
That was the foundation of televised debates.
That was the beginning of it. Now, TV was a little different then. The screen on my laptop's bigger than the TV I watched that debate on. We used to think that a 20-inch TV was big screen. So I watched it, and the commentator said people who watched the debate thought Kennedy won. People who listened to the debate thought Nixon won. And that's kind of what Troy said this morning. Said about the same thing. And the reason was that Nixon, now if you're over on the left, as soon as you hear the word Nixon, you got to start making noises like this. Nixon. You know, and if I said, you know, Nixon was really good at tying his shoes, you would say, no, he wasn't. You wouldn't think that he had anything at all positive to say about him. But Nixon was a very smart guy, very smart, very calculating. That's how he was able to claw his way all the way up to the top. Problem was that he forgot to stop clawing once he got there, and that got him in trouble. Kennedy, on the other hand, is more of a pretty boy. Kennedy was not that smart. You know, Kennedy's famous book, Profiles in Courage, which I read, they claim was actually written by Theodore Sorensen, Ted Sorensen, because Kennedy didn't pack the gear to do something like that. He was a really nice-looking guy, made a very great presentation, good, very powerful public speaker, etc., but not really that smart. So Nixon came across, if you listen to him, he came across really good. If you watch Kennedy, he didn't screw up, but, you know, with his tousled hair and the way he would, you know, straighten out his hair, his mannerisms and his Boston accent, which at the time was seen kind of exotic and different, not a handicap at all. Came across really well on the tube. Nixon, on the other hand, coloring was bad. Hair was too dark. He sweat a little bit during the debate, etc. So the viewers gave it to Nixon. The listeners gave it to Kennedy. Now, I tend to agree with Troy on this one. I watched. Yeah, I didn't listen. I watched, and I got to give it to Troy. I mean, to Josh. Josh was very polished. He was quite well prepared. He was on target with every one of his answers. He was smooth. Now, when people watch something like this, they want to know, how would that person be? How would he treat me? Now, the price you pay for professionalism, smoothness, coolness, etc., is that you tend to appear a little bit cold or cool or distant. Sabrina, on the other hand, was kind of like the lady next door, you know, had a kind of a folksy dimension to her. And if you listen to what she said, she didn't have brilliant answers, but I think she was able to project the idea, you know, I care about you folks out there. If you were sitting right here, you know how it is, Jose, on the island. I think it's almost physically impossible for Chamorro to sit down and eat in front of somebody who doesn't have food. It's just about impossible.
I don't think I've ever seen it happen.
Yeah, if it does, it's really rare. Oh, come on, yeah. And that's kind of the sense I got from Sabrina, that same approach that in politics you would call connecting. So I had the feeling for those who watched, Sabrina probably made a better connection than Josh did. Josh, if I were going to say who won, Josh won the debate. If I were going to say who jumped up the most support out of the debate, who did the best, who came across as the best political speaker in the debate, I'd say if you watched it was probably Sabrina. If you listened, a lot of her appeal evaporated, and all you heard was her answers, a couple of which bordered on being lame. Now, going back to the original premise, having a kind of a lame answer in that context maybe isn't all that bad, you know?
This is the lieutenant governor race, which really isn't a race because they're attached to the governor that's going to be elected.
Yeah.
However, for me, it sounded like Josh was running for governor in the next term, and Salas was still coming into play as lieutenant governor.
Yeah, good call, Jose, good call. You know, conventional wisdom holds that the lieutenant governor is only good for two things: bringing votes to the ticket and doing what the governor tells him or her to do. That's it. And we've seen what happened when the second one doesn't happen. The second Camacho Moylan administration, the Berdalio Sablan administration, these guys were, you know, I don't think even on speaking terms. And it didn't work very well at all. Now, I want to abolish the position of lieutenant governor. I think it's, I would pick up John Nance Garner's line about being vice president of the United States. John Nance Garner was from Uvalde, Texas, believe it or not. And somebody said, Vice President Garner, can you tell us what it's like to be the vice president of the United States? Yeah. This here office is about as useful as a bucket of warm piss.
And that was the dignity of the office.
Exactly. Yeah. Because the lieutenant governor doesn't have any job, doesn't have anything to do. He's the keeper of the Guam seal. He has no duties. But on the other hand, the governor cannot discipline him. If the governor says, I want you to stay in your office until 5 o'clock, and at noon the lieutenant governor's sitting in a bar getting drunk, the governor can't suspend him. He can't dock his pay. He certainly can't fire him. He has no control over him at all. So we used to think we had to have that number 2 because governors would leave island and there had to be somebody here to sign the papers, etc., when the governor left the island. That was then, this is now. 1950, it made sense. In 2022, it makes no sense at all. The governor is always the governor wherever they are. President is always the president wherever he is. I'm always going to say goodbye to him wherever I am. I will say, let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Congressman attacked. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. Republican Congressman Lee Zeldin, who's running for governor of New York, attacked on stage at a campaign event outside Rochester last night.
Witnesses say that man wrestled with Zeldin and pulled out some sort of blade. That person reported to have been taken down by event-goers. The Monroe County Sheriff's Office said a suspect is in custody. After the attack, Zeldin went back on stage and continued talking. Zeldin's campaign said he's fine.
Fox's Jill Nato. Zeldin predicted the suspect would be released with no bail, and he has been. A Rochester, New York police officer was shot and killed. Another shot and wounded while on patrol Thursday evening.
Officers out here working part of a detail. They're doing their job as police officers. And at least one male approached them and opened fire on them.
Rochester Police Lieutenant Greg Bello. Earlier Thursday, Rochester's Mayor Malik Evans had declared a state of emergency because of violence in the city. He's called the officer's death a tragedy. The House Select Committee on January 6th has wrapped up its summer schedule with a prime-time presentation that included outtakes from the former president's recorded statement urging protesters to leave the Capitol. Committee Vice Chair Congresswoman Lynn Cheney saying,
Our committee understands the gravity of this moment, the consequences for our nation. We have much work yet to do, and we will see you all in September.
Several members of the Democrat-controlled committee say they believe the former president was responsible for what happened at the Capitol last January 6th. Closing arguments and likely jury deliberations coming today in the trial of former White House aide Steve Bannon. He's charged with contempt for failing to comply with a January 6th committee subpoena. President Biden continuing to isolate himself at the White House after testing positive for COVID-19 yesterday morning. The president saying in a video that